We have a study session this evening on our state letter grades, and Dr. Jennifer Fletcher, our Executive Director of Assessment and Accountability and Research, will be providing an update for us. Dr. Fletcher.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. Tonight we're going to go through a high-level overview of the state A through F letter grades for school year 2021-2022, so last year. Just for those who are watching and listening, state letter grades are publicly available on our Arizona State Board of Education's website. So this is not a Chandler thing. This is a state thing. All letter grades are available for the entire state on the state board's website. I want to just do a very brief, I promise I'm not going over the models again. A very brief overview though that we have 3 letter grade models. Right, you have your K-8 model for your elementary and junior high schools, your 9-12 model for our high schools, and then what the state calls a non-typical model, which is a hybrid of any variation K across 12. Okay, so for us that's predominantly Basha, Castile, and COA. Just again, a really high-level overview of the model. K-8 predominantly focuses on growth, so you see that 50% weighting on growth, 30% proficiency, 10% EL, and 10% acceleration readiness. Our high school 9-12 model is 30% proficiency, 20% growth, 20% on college and career readiness, which is that self-reported indicator, 20% graduation rate, and 10% on EL. And then your non-typical is a merge of those 2 models based on the proportion of students in each model. All right, I kept it super simple today, so last time with the models it got complex, so we're gonna go simple today. You're gonna see a lot of pie charts. So what I did was I took that Excel file that is publicly available on the State Board of Education's website, and I determined how many, through a combination of K-8, 9, 12, and non-typical models, how many A's were awarded across the state. So you'll see we're at 27% of the schools in the state were an A, 43% were a B, 23% C, 5% were D, and 2% were Fs. Okay, so that is our state letter grades. Now keep in mind that not all schools get awarded a letter grade if they are super small. They are unrated, right? So there are schools that cannot earn enough points to make a letter grade. Roughly 1,750 schools were awarded a letter grade in the state. Then what I did was we did a quick analysis of charter versus district. So on the left you can see how the charter schools did. So they had 27% A, 47% B, and so on, compared to district schools, which were 28% A, 42% B, 24% C. So just to try to show you a little bit of differences, districts did have a slightly higher percentage of A, but a lower percentage of Bs, a higher percentage of Cs and Ds. The next analysis that we're going to keep simple, right, is now how did we, as Chandler Unified, perform compared to the state, to the charter, to the district. So you'll see very excitingly that 52% of our schools are an A, 39% are Bs, 9% are Cs, and we did not have any D or F schools with this prior year letter grade data. Because it's important to look district, but it's also important to look by model so that we know where to proceed, right? This is just our K-8 schools, so please keep in mind for K-8 letter grades, right? That's our elementary as well as our ACP middle and our junior high schools. They all fall into the K-8 model. So 49% were A, 40% B, 11% were C. So we have been working with, we'll talk a little bit about school improvement in a minute here, but we've been already having conversations with our schools who are C letter grades. How can they improve? What do we need to focus on moving forward this year so that we can improve our letter grades? And we've done that with our C schools, but we've also done that with the Bs. We have B schools principals who are excited to be Bs and still want to see more progress. Right? So we look at all of the elements of the letter grade components in conjunction with our assessment data, right? Because we don't want to make progress just for the purpose of a letter grade. That is important, but we want to make progress for our students, for all students, right? So we do the analysis by the subgroups, like I showed you when we went through our achievement data, in conjunction with our letter grade, and figure out what are our goals we need to establish and how can we get there. Our 9-12, so our high schools, are 60% A, 40% B, and our non-traditionals are all A's. What does this look like for prior years? So this is just Chandler Unified School District letter grades. Just a reminder, 2020-21, we had no letter grades. Oh, I forgot to put 1920 in there. We also had no letter grades in 1920 as well because of COVID, so there's that 2-year gap. So you'll see this is our first year of letter grades after COVID, and I think it's fairly straightforward that given the pandemic, we still did really well on the letter grade system that the state has designed. All right, so this is the most important piece of the puzzle is while we have a high number of A's, we have a high number of B's and a few C's, it doesn't mean we can't get better, right? We can always continue to make improvement. So what I did, and again, this was just part of the analysis, is I compared how did we do on our K-8 school letter grades compared to the state, and we look for, did we do better? Did we do worse? We start here, and then we do that deep dive analysis by subgroups, crossing our achievement data to see what actual progress needs to be made. So at this level, what we start with, if you look at that table, the numbers that are in bold are where we outperform the state. So you can see on our K-8 model, it actually looks like a roller coaster a little bit there, right? We outperformed the state on proficiency, which is great. However, we only earned 21.57 on average of the points out of 30. That means we still have room to grow, right? The state performed better than us on growth points, so we absolutely need to work on that year-over-year growth. For growth this year, it was on what's called student growth percentile. That's the one where they compare to all the students in the state. So they're peer group, so we need to be making sure we're growing our students at a greater rate is really what we need. Yeah.
Can I just ask for the growth? Is that growth over the 3-year gap?
This one is just the year, prior year to current year. Right now, unless, nope, this one's just because of the new assessment, it's just current year and prior year. Yes, in the future, it will be over 3 years.
But, so we have 21, 22 data. And then the other data we have is from 18, 19. So how are they looking at 1-year data if we don't have data from the year before?
Great question. I wish I had an answer.
Okay.
They say psychometrically it can be done, and then we fall within and say, okay. I mean,
So
yeah.
does this look atypical compared to other years if it was possibly a different type of measurement?
It actually did not.
Okay.
So when the state board reviewed the cut scores, they were given 2 options, well, 3 options, but one was really off the table. So the first option was to use the prior year cut scores, and by prior year we just mean the last time it was administered. And for the K-8 model, that is what they chose to go with because it actually saw the least amount of changes and reflected the typical state results. They had the option also to adjust it using what they call the standard deviation model. That actually harmed more of the schools than it benefited. And then the third model, which is the one that's proposed but usually off the table, is a classic 90% or greater A, 80 to 90 B, right, where everybody in the state nearly fails. So it actually panned out really well to use the prior year, which I'll be honest, most people, including myself, were surprised by. So somehow it worked.
Okay, thanks.
So again, we looked at those growth points. You can see on our EL, we did well compared to the state, really well, but doesn't mean we don't need to keep up that work with our EL students. And then acceleration readiness, we were slightly lower than the state. That's that menu of options. I can tell you where most schools across the state did not earn points was chronic absenteeism, because last year we still had high chronic absence rates because of the pandemic. So had those points been available to all of the schools, letter grades may look a little bit different. It's something that the state heard, the district and charter, everyone's complaints. but because they felt that the acceleration readiness is a menu, they didn't feel they had to do anything for those points. So that was where they decided. And then again, bonus points in just our total percentage earned. And just as a reminder, we use total percentage earned instead of points, because if you don't have 10 EL students, you are not eligible for those 10 points. So some schools can be out of 90 points total. So we use a percentage, so we're comparing everyone equally. And then we did the same thing with our 912 schools. You'll see for our 912 schools, with the exception of the bonus points, we outperform the state on everything, but does not mean we should not go look at our data and continue to improve, right? Our schools earned 22 points out of the 30 on proficiency, so we have some work to do. And again, this is where we go and compare it to our achievement results by subgroups, and we start to pinpoint what are the instructional practices and what else do we need to do to support our students. Growth, they earned almost 18 of the 20 points, but again, we need to continue that growth from prior year. EL, 9 out of the 10 points. Graduation rate, 18 of the 20, right? And college and career ready, again, outperforming the state, but only on average 16 of the 20 points. So we need to do more to getting our students access to those college and career ready. You remember there was that giant list of indicators that's really confusing, getting them access to more opportunities to earn points. But not for the purpose of earning points, right? For the purpose of giving them access to opportunities for where they want to take their future. I will add in here just briefly, I know next year is a little bit of a ways away because of the state assessment, right? Last year, ACT was in its first year, and they, for growth on this one, used grade 10 AZM2 from prior year. That means for this school year, there is no year-over-year student level growth data. So for this year's letter grades, what they look at is, if you recall in that K-8 model, that subgroup improvement, they put subgroup improvement prior year to current year on ACT into that growth category. So this year's letter grade won't actually be based on student growth. It will be based on subgroup improvement. That's kind of their fix until we have enough years of data to get growth scores. All right, again, it was a simple high-level overview today. Any questions?
Thank you, Dr. Fletcher. Yeah, I have one question. So it seems as though, is this going to be, are the letter grades going to be, I guess, consistent? It seems like over the years they have changed the methods, they have altered what they're looking at, it just seems like in a lot of cases, it's kind of, I don't know, a little bit meaningless because of the way they change it, and you're basically having to follow these changes, and you have no idea. And so how do you truly focus, other than, of course, I mean, we're consistently trying to increase our proficiency, increase our growth, our learning growth for our students, and our graduation rates and things like that. And those are, I guess, the basics that these letter grades are based on, but it almost seems like it's a moving target.
It is, and the final draft of the technical manual isn't complete until the end of the school year. So it is always a moving target. Based on the State Board of Education comments on October 17th, they approved the cut scores, but there were several comments made about how they didn't like the model and the system, and because it's an entirely new board, and it will have a brand new executive director and director starting in January, the entire letter grade model may change. So with that being said, for us as a district, we don't really focus, I shouldn't say we don't focus on the letter grades, but that's not the data that we use to drive how we're going to support our students, right? We're looking at the achievement results, we're looking at our benchmarks, our screener diagnostic, we're looking at our local sources, right, to determine our effectiveness and how we're going to move the needle as opposed to the statewide results. They're an important indicator, but they're not the only indicator. I know there are districts who focus strictly on letter grades, and they look at it and they use the SGT, the student growth target, and they tell their teachers the target is here, get that child here, which is good, right? That's going to move them to proficiency. But it's not the only metric we should hold that student accountable to, and we also have to be aware of the whole child and what else is going on in their life. For us, it's not about the letter grade. If we're doing what we should be, the letter grade is a natural byproduct of us doing what we should be for kids.
And don't we really have, when we're looking at, for at least the 9 through 12, the career and college ready points, that really does expand a lot of opportunities for our students, so that they can really kind of pursue very different paths for their future, and allowing them to explore those while they're still in high school will really, I think, assist them with figuring out what they want to do with their lives.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I've been meeting with the high school principals because we have data visualizations on their college and career ready by students to show what other programs might you need to offer, or what other opportunities, right? FAFSA is an opportunity that a lot of students don't complete. It's simple, right? It's not a tedious or arduous process necessarily to fill out that FAFSA form. I'm not saying we fill out FAFSAs to earn points, but that is something that a student may not be aware. I didn't know I had this opportunity to earn funding to go to college, right? So we hold FAFSA nights to get them those opportunities, which again, we do what's best for them, but naturally will earn us higher letter grades potentially.
And now that you mention FAFSA, that brought to mind something else. There are definitely families in this community who don't feel the need to fill out FAFSA because they basically are well-to-do and their children would not be being eligible for any kind of funding, extra funding. So I guess, how do we encourage those people to fill this out when really it's not going to make any difference for them?
Honestly, if you look at the analysis, those are the students who already are maxing out on their number of points anyway, because they're already in AP or IB and CTE. They're doing a whole slew of other things that they don't need to fill out the FAFSA necessarily,
Okay.
right?
Well, yeah. Or even as you start looking at student athletes, or,
Oh, absolutely.
there's many times, well, I think sometimes the schools will ask for, even if they're giving them an athletic scholarship, will ask them to fill out the FAFSA, just,
Yep, and our high schools hold FAFSA nights to encourage students, all students to come and to get help and to get it started and get it processing, because there are students who aren't even aware of it.
okay. Mrs. Bruner, did you have some questions?
Just on the FAFSA thing, I do think it's true. There are some folks who are like, I've already had other students go through. I know I'm not going to get any Pell Grant or anything from that. And they're like, why am I bothering to fill this out? And I did talk to some of my own students about this, because if you look at some of the Ivy Leagues, they only give need-based scholarships, and because their tuition is outrageous, you might be surprised that you do qualify. And so communicating those kind of things out to those really competitive students whose families, may normally not receive anything, they might actually receive something. So I guess there's ways to spin it, I guess, is what I'm saying, and we have to make sure we share that with the kids so they know.
No, that's a great point.
But I did want to just ask, and I'm not sure if I asked this the last time you went in lots of detail. EVIT, how do we balance the career data with EVIT? And if I've asked that before, I apologize if I forgot what the answer is. So they get like a test because they're in a program, if they're a completer or not, whatever. And how does that relate to our scores? Is it just EVIT scores? Does it also count towards ours? What does that look like?
Yep. So all of the completers are worth, I apologize, I'm visualizing the data tables that I fill in. The completers are get points, 2 or more courses. So there's different varying levels, so that if they don't make it all the way to the end, you're still earning some points for the work that they've accomplished. And then when they take and pass the test, then they're worth another amount. So it builds on itself.
So I guess my question is, if they go to EVIT, does that count towards EVIT only? Or does it count towards us and EVIT?
It counts towards us in any event. So any which way.
Okay, thank you.
All right, are there any other questions? I guess Dr. Gilbert has something?
Sorry, I just wanted to add something with the FAFSA piece, because we do have FAFSA nights, but the other thing is we encourage all of our students to fill it out, because we let them know that they need to fill it out because something can change from the time they think they're going to college, and then all of a sudden they don't know, and the family thinks it's fine, and then all of a sudden there's a hardship that happens. And if you haven't filled it out, they're not going to allow you to fill it out after. So we try to get them to look at, just fill it out no matter what. And then monthly, I get a sheet on our FAFSA, the students that have applied, and those that have completed their FAFSA. And I look at it and I get the information once a month that looks at last year where they were and where the school was and where they are. So I get to see how many did they fill out last year, how many did they complete last year, and then I look at those every month and we get that information out.
Great, thank you. If you track it, then things happen. It's a
For
focus.
better or
so-
worse, yep.
Yep. So, are there any other questions? All right, well, thank you, Dr. Fletcher. We truly appreciate it. It looks like we've done well this past year. And, I mean, we still have a ways to go. I mean, I'd love to see every single school as an A school, because that truly means that our children here in this district are being successful and they're getting the things that they need. So, thank you.
Yep.
We will take a short break until the meeting starts at 7 o'clock.